It is 7:29. We now call the East Lyme Zoning Commission regular meeting of June 16th, 2022 to order. Let's rise for Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. How is everyone? Let's begin with roll call. Myself, I'm here. Mr. Dwyer is not with us. Mr. Granitek?
Present.
Mrs. Jet Harris?
Here.
Mr. Peck is not with us. Ms. Thurlow?
Here.
Mr. Ginsburg? Here. Ms. Markovitz?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Please silence cell phones. Thank you. Mr. Mulholland, yes. Here. Sue Spang, yes. Ms. Hardy, yes. Please take a note that I've sat Ms. Markovitz for Mr. Peck and Mr. Schmidt for Mr. Dwyer. Moving on.
If we go in alphabetical order, shit.
All right, let's clear this up.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, we are following alphabetical order. Okay. Last time, Mr. Ginsburg sat. Mr. Schmidt sat as well. Mr. Schmidt was up first. Mr. Ginsburg was up next. It is Ms. Markovitz's turn. She is seating now. Mr. Dwyer can also not be with us. Therefore, Mr. Schmidt is up. Okay?
Just keep
If you
the
did
list.
not show up, Mr. Ginsburg was going to sit.
Got it.
This is how it has been. It is how it will always be. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I would like for you to please refrain from taking that tone when someone asks a question.
I am
please.
just being clear, Mrs. Jet Harris. That's all I am speaking of.
Okay, I'm just asking
being
you to
clear.
please watch your tone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jet Harris. Moving on, public delegations. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission on subject matters that are not on the agenda. Do we have any items that are not on the agenda that which should be brought up? Seeing that, public hearing, we have none. Moving on, regular meeting, application of Keith Nielsen, P.E., for DACO Incorporated, for William Stone for a coastal area management review at 297 Old Black Point Road, East Lyme, for a passive residential recreation on a small, recreation on a small deck. Would you like to read the memo, please? Ms. Secretary?
June 16, 2022. East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland regarding coastal site plan application 297 Old Black Point Road. Coastal site plan reviews are mandated under the Coastal Management Act as found in Chapter 444 of the Connecticut General Statutes. The regulatory program is designed to protect the state's coastal resources from unsuitable development on lands within the coastal boundary. Local shoreline communities must review specific types of development for compliance with the Act. In this application, DACO Incorporated proposes to construct a 14-foot by 35-foot platform and a 6-foot wide by 8-foot pedestal support walkway, a 4-foot by 5-foot wood stair, and a 6-foot by 8-foot landing will also be construction. All structures will have safety rails and will have deck lighting, which will be ambient downlighting. The purpose of the property is to create a passive waterfront recreational space. The project engineer, Keith B. Nelson, will give a presentation regarding coastal resources and coastal resources policies. He will also demonstrate the project's consistency with the applicable coastal resource policy and standards as well as the coastal use policies. He will discuss the mitigation of potential adverse impact on coastal resources.
Thank you, Ms. Thurlow. Yes, Ms. Mulholland?
The purpose of the project, there's a typo, it said property, it should be project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulholland. Mr. Nielsen?
Thank you. I'm Keith Nielsen with DACO Incorporated, and I've prepared the application documents that you have before you tonight. As mentioned in the brief narrative that was read, this is a passive recreational facility. It's a deck system that is being installed on the edge of a boulder bluff. It's a highly modified bluff, and that's identified as a coastal resource in the DEP regulations. All of the work is landward of the DEP jurisdiction lines, which are shown on the drawing. You can see the high tide line and the mean high water line, mean low water line. There is no encroachment into state or public trust waters. Everything is on property owned by the applicant. The structure will be built to the dimensions mentioned and will be supported by driven steel piles. If I know that many of you were not here for the a similar project that was approved for B.J. Dowling next door several years ago, and that dock was built. I'm sorry, that deck system was built, and it is a really nice amenity, barely visible to anybody because of the curvature of the point and the elevation of the deck system, which is actually below grade of the lawn. It does have safety rails around the perimeter. It's a heavy-duty structure because we are in very close proximity to wave conditions that can be significant in coastal storms. That's why it's steel pile supported. And a detail in the lower right-hand corner of the drawing shows the steel framing construction that will be used. The joists for the deck will be embedded into the webbing of the steel I-beam, the welded steel I-beam frame, and then the decking will be screwed down to the stringers, and everything will be thus secured to the steel frame. The steel frame is entirely welded as and will be welded to the driven steel pipes, which serve as the supports. We have to use steel pipes because of the number of boulders or the percentage of coverage of boulders on the site, and the only thing that can get down through the boulders is the steel pipe pile. Once we get up to the shoreline upper end of the revetment, there is a very good likelihood, and we have depicted that the upper part of the landing platform for the stairs will be concrete pedestal supported. That way it works into the stability of the revetment. Project will take about 2 weeks to build. Has to be built on successive weeks when we have high tide access to the site. I should say in staggered weeks. And so work will probably be done this fall after some of the, or several of the local residents.
After hurricane season?
Yeah, right. Yep. I'll tell you, I have been out on Mr. Dowling's deck, and as well as his dock facility, which is built in a similar nature with driven steel piles and steel frame. And it is exciting out there when the storms are kicking up.
I would not want to be there, but just saying.
So most of the work, initial work will be by barge?
Yes, initial work will be done by barge.
And this project is above the coastal jurisdiction line, is that correct?
It's above the coastal jurisdiction line.
Thank you.
Yep. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Does anyone in the commission have any questions? Ms. Jett, you good?
No, I'm good, thanks. Bill, Mr. Mulholland asked the question that I was going to ask. Thank you.
And I just noticed, if I may, Mr. Chairman, there's no referral to DEP, it's not a soil erosion control structures constructed by the coastal jurisdiction line, they don't have any jurisdiction. If it was at mean high water at the coastal jurisdiction line with the soil erosion control like a seawall, then it'd be not enough referral. So just for information for the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mulholland. Judging no other questions, I mean, you have a question?
No, I was just saying, and the neighbors don't have any problem with it, that you know.
No, it's exactly like, it's almost exactly like Mr.
One-
Dowling's.
Mhm.
And from what I understand, the neighbors enjoy being on them. And, right, so,
Oh, no, I read the narrative, it seems all complete.
thank you.
Yeah, Keith, like I was starting to say, is like, most of us have seen your work for years. If not, I'm sure we will see more of you. I know I trust you in your design and everything like that, and I personally don't have any questions, or I trust you 100%.
Thank you.
What else? We're good? Noted. I would take a motion to approve or deny, please.
I make a motion to approve. Where's my thing here?
Thank you, Ms. Markovitz. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank
Do
you,
we
Mr. Chad
need to
Harris.
read the whole thing?
I make a motion to approve the application of Keith Nielsen of DACO for William Stone for coastal management review at 297 Old Black Point, East Lyme, for a passive residential recreation on a small dock deck.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you for the following reasons. The application is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the CAM Act. And 2, the applicant has taken all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water-dependent uses. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Congratulations, Keith. Thank you. Moving on to our second item, application of the Town of East Lyme for a coastal area management review at 85 Oswegatchie Hills Road, East Lyme, for installation of a 12-foot storm drainage pipe and catch basin where an existing swale has eroded. Read the menu, please.
June 16, 2022, to East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland regarding coastal site plan application 85 Oswegatchie Hills. Coastal site plan reviews are mandated under the Coastal Management Act as found in Chapter 444 of the Connecticut General Statutes. This regulatory program is designed to protect the state's coastal resources from unsuitable development on lands within the coastal boundary. Local shoreline communities must review specific types of development for compliance with the Act. In this application, the town of East Lyme proposes to install a 12-foot HDPE storm drainage pipe and catch basin where an existing swale has eroded. A level spreader and stone protection will be installed at the pipe outlet. A vegetated filter strip buffer currently exists from the sill into the river, which will not into the river, which will not be disturbed. There will be no demolition on site. Town engineer Alex Kloss is here to give a presentation.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly on this application. This one was on the fence in terms of whether it was exempted or not, because under the CAM Act there are certain exemptions, and this is essentially kind of a utility housekeeping measure, drainage system that needs to be corrected and updated. But I felt that since it was a judgment call, better to come.
Understood.
So that's why we're here, and Alex is here to give the presentation.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. For the record, Alex Close, Town Engineer for East Lyme. Happy I can finally make it to a zoning meeting. I think I've hit most other boards, but appreciate your time this evening. So yeah, I'll give you an overview of the area so you're familiar, show you a couple images and what the plan is. So if you're familiar with the area, this is the Three Bells Marina across the way, and this is where North Edgewood runs into Oswegatchie Hills. This is a project that's been on our radar for a little bit, but haven't had the time to go out and complete a thoughtful design and figure out how to solve the problem. So the area in question is right at the bottom corner of North Edgewood. A majority of the stormwater stays on Oswegatchie Hills, but there is some that comes down, as well as a portion of North Edgewood that comes down to the corner of the property right here. And today there is a clay trough with a leak off of the pavement that is currently, the trough itself is quite damaged, and it's causing significant erosion on the property owner here at number 85. So I'm just going to switch this out and show you a couple images of what this area looks like.
Did you say clay trough?
Yes, it's made out of clay.
That's an old one.
It's very old, yes. So this is what it looks like from the road. So this is the bottom corner here of North Edgewood where the water collects. This is an old drive that's quite broken up. I know that the homeowner has expressed potentially utilizing this as a functional driveway once again. And currently what happens is most of the stormwater makes it into this clay, although in higher storms it certainly exceeds the capacity of this and just starts running down the driveway. Some roots have come in from these trees here and busted up portions of the clay, as well as just the age and freeze-thaw cycles, etc. So it starts to run off and actually scour across the driveway until it eventually makes its way into the bay here of the river. So I'll flip this over to show you what it looks like down below and sort of where our design intention is. So you can see on the far right hand side where the clay actually ends, and then it starts to kind of just run off over the grass here, and then it comes down the embankment, and it's actually just out of shot here, but it starts to cut down on the side here. But there's already a natural drop off here. And so what we did was I had Bill Shear, the deputy director, is a licensed land surveyor, and I myself went out and we pulled a benchmark out from the marina and traced it back to determine exactly where the coastal jurisdiction line lays here, which lays just outside of the bottom of this natural slope here. So what we figured we'd like to do is, instead of continuing to have a swale here which gets inundated in high capacity storms, instead to put a basin and actually pipe it to the bottom here outside of the coastal jurisdiction line. I'll show you the plan in a moment. And then keeping in mind, once this project is complete, the existing ground everything will remain. There'll be no elevation change. There'll be trenching work which will be immediately restored, and then we'll install a level spreader at the bottom and maintain this existing buffer. And then there's some marshal natural plants here as well. So you've got the buffer before the high water line, and then some additional vegetation before it hits the waterway. And I'll show you what that plan looks like in a moment. So the plan, as proposed, is to remove the leak off and instead put a catch basin with a sump that can be added to our regular maintenance schedule. We go around and we clean out these sumps regularly with a vac truck. We just did a little over 200 catch basins, if you've seen the truck driving around town recently. So that'll be added to our regular maintenance schedule. We'll put a 12-inch pipe in here. We will have to use a bend because I'd like to keep this pipe away from those trees. We don't want to cause any damage to the root mass at all, to keep those trees in place. So it'll go roughly down the center line of this easement, and it'll discharge here at the bottom into a level spreader. The 12-inch capacity of the pipe will ensure that it'll keep velocities to a minimum because of the capacity naturally built into the pipe. It'll be spread amongst the stone. We're going to install a curb, probably a granite curb, into the ground there to lock that stone into place so it doesn't further erode. It'll come up over the curb. If in lower frequent storms, it may just infiltrate right into the level spreader would be the ideal. And once frequent storms are surpassed and it starts to get into heavier rainfall, it'll go up over the level spreader and through that buffer. Keeping in mind that ideally the sump that's installed in the spreader itself should be separating most of that TSS out of there anyway. But it has that buffer before it gets to the waterway. So we're not considering this what you think of as a traditional point discharge like we do have some around town where it just goes right from the road into the waterway. Instead, we don't want to, we're not trying to add any discharge points or anything like that around town. We're just trying to fix an existing issue, keep that pulled back a little bit. And the reason we're not pulling back any farther is because we actually want to hold that existing bank, and we don't want to cut in and remove material. We'd like to just put the pipe in the ground, backfill the trench, leave everything the way it was, except now it's being conveyed subsurface rather than through this homeowner's property. As of right now, we've got the subscriptive rights to drains, but we also have the right to install utility in this easement. And before everything gets finalized, the installation is complete, the homeowners agreed to we will have a piece of record that just documents what happened between the town and the homeowner, and that'll get filed on the land records. And the town does fully intend to maintain this system. If anything were to happen, this would be considered our infrastructure, as we have in many places around town with our piping going through a property with some sort of a written agreement or an easement. This would be treated no differently. So with all of that in mind, if I have any questions from the commission, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Does anyone have any questions?
I just have one quick question because I'm curious.
Yes.
How do you think this system is going to work if we have an unusually high tide? Because that, I live on the other side of that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Is like if we have an unusual high tide,
Sure.
how is all that? Is that going to stay in place?
So it will. I'll say, based on being out there, I don't have any signs that the water gets that high in terms of the type of vegetation that's there and how far it is from the mean high water line. That being considered, if the tide were actually to come up into this system, possibly some displaced rocks if it was a significant amount of water, but with the curb being set in there and we're going to use some relatively large stone, that's even unlikely, but the worst case scenario would probably just be some rocks that are displaced. We'd have to go collect those and just make sure that that level spreader gets reestablished. As far as the piping goes, it's going to be buried considerably below grade, so I don't anticipate that causing any kind of hydraulic issue with the pipe itself with the amount of cover that's over it. But even in worst case scenario, this would probably just be a simple restoration of the existing piping, but certainly nothing catastrophic, and that's, as I said, highly unlikely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
How do you calculate the potential volume of water from that street when there's no other infrastructure on it?
Yep. So we actually went out, myself and my assistant Peter went out, and we looked at LiDAR first, but then went out to confirm grades ourselves, and we did a rough just impervious area calculation, and a majority of the water going here is actually on pervious. The amount of impervious going to this location is pretty small. I don't have that map right in front of me, but we went out and basically calculated it based off of what we would consider an average rainfall over that impervious area, with the understanding that if we get a significant rain event like an Ida or something like that, it may overtop the basin as it does today, but that happens regularly, and considering there's no downstream structures or any other kind of property, we would anticipate that would just overcharge the basin and go down the hill, but it wouldn't flood anybody's property, so we're not concerned about that. It's better to keep the pipe smaller just to try to minimize any velocities during an event like that. That's actually making it through the outlet.
And if I may, in that code, you don't have a lot of wave wash that you normally we get in a hurricane where it's fronting on a beach or it was out in the river. Some portions of the river, some of the flood zones have intense V zone because of wave wash that's generated from the wind and the stormwater. So it's a rather passive area, so I don't anticipate any significant issues either. You know, it's all got to rise up, and it's certainly possible.
Yeah, more than likely the basin top itself would be the limiter, and it would overcharge over the top of the basin, but it would just run down the driveway and out into the water, and at that point, you know, we're way beyond the expected, what you'd consider a dirty water storm with that much water. It's just essentially overflood storm water that's just running. That would be happening all over town at that point.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm good.
Mr. Schmidt, you good?
I'm good.
Ms. Debbie Jett, you still good?
I'm good, thanks.
Ms. Markovitz?
Yes, yes.
On that, I am all set. With that being said, I will take a motion to approve or deny, and I ask that you please read the motion or deny.
Great. I'll do it. I move to approve the application of the town of East Lyme for a coastal area management review at 8 Oswegatchie Hills Road, East Lyme, for the installation of a 12-foot storm drainage pipe and catch basin where an existing swell has eroded. Reasons: 1, application is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the CAM Act. 2, applicant has taken all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impact of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water-dependent uses.
Thank you, Ms. Secker. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on. Item number 3, request of 185 Main LLC for a site plan modification regarding landscaping at property identified as 185 Main Street, East Lyme. East Lyme Assessors Map 12.1, Lot 79. Secretary, please.
June 16, 2022, to East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland regarding site plan modification 185 Main Street. The applicant, 185 Main LLC, is requesting a site plan adjustment to modify the area between the front of the building and the public sidewalk. The existing plan delineates a vegetative landscape space in the subject area. It is proposed to eliminate the landscaping and replace it with patio consisting of architectural pavers. The purposes is to create an attractive semi-public space which enhances the commercial appeal of the storefronts on the first floor. The patio will have a small-scale architectural fence installed along the street, which will have a black wrought iron look. The patio will have several planters installed to provide spaces for plants and flowers. As the commission may recall, several months ago, the original site plan was reapproved by the board. At that time, the applicant was going to use the plan as approved. However, after reassessing the front landscape plan, it was determined that an update was necessary to reflect today's marketplace. A review of the proposal, in my view, finds the new plan is a vast improvement over the original submission and is considered a minor modification.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Gentlemen?
I'm not sure I could say it any better. That's essentially what we're proposing to do. The original plan that was approved, I think about 10 years ago, had landscaping strip in front and also continuing to the building. With the tenants that we have going in there, we're worried that that landscaping strip will end up getting destroyed over time as commercial patrons just walk over it. So our proposal is to eliminate that, add the planter beds to kind of act in the same manner and create more of a commercial area in front for those tenants.
And then the wrought iron like fence gives a division for each
Between the
each
sidewalk.
unit in the sidewalks.
When you say planter beds, I see planter boxes. What do you mean by?
The original plan had planter
Okay,
beds
okay.
on it. Yeah.
I think
Just wanted to be clear.
the thought is, as we move forward with this design and looking at some of the tenants, as we all know, we have a lot of patio areas in our restaurants on Main Street. We continue to push that narrative. Looking at the structure, with the common sense to get rid of the landscaping and put in a big surface, we've discussed materials, textures, things like that, and it's sort of come together, as you can see in the illustrations and in the site plan. So that's where we find ourselves, and why I talked about an administrative approval, but I felt it was more appropriate to share with the commission and come in and show you what we're looking to do in that space, and to be inclusive as we move forward on this. As we all know, this project is moving along very quickly.
Yeah, I walked by there today. With this, there's not that much space. I think this is a much better idea.
The sidewalk does get refinished at the end, right before we.
Yeah, we redo that.
That's all.
Yeah.
And what we're looking to do is, as we all know, it's part of the boardwalk loop. A lot of people come in on boats, walking and come around that way. And we're trying to anticipate some of those people saying, hey, gee, I might want to stop for a coffee and a donut or whatever. Sit down as they walk by, invite themselves in. There'll probably be some tables out, possibly some umbrellas that more than likely match the awning. So as we move forward in this, I think this is a much better product than what we started off with.
Mr. Mulholland, I have a question. The black fence that goes up, is there a requirement of what the height has to be, or no?
Liquor control does if we're serving liquor at this time. I don't think there's any liquor
No.
being served. So it's more of an architectural feature to kind of separate the space. You know, it's private, yet they're inviting the public in.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fences generally do make good neighbors. And so it's separate. You're not going to wander around in there unless you have a purpose. And we felt that that would help divide from the public space, but also invite the public in as well.
It'll generally be about 42 inches high. That's pretty much the standard. We've seen on other projects in other towns, not ours, people do too small of a fence and it just gets tripped over, or they do too high and it becomes a barricade, which is not what we're trying to do. We just
Okay.
want to create some division.
All right, thank you.
In addition, if we had a different user at some point, liquor control and then want to serve liquor, glass of wine and a beer with something, and the control's gonna require that separation, so this gets ahead of that game and gives more creative opportunities for future business.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. Any questions for the applicant?
No. There would be a major reduction of maintenance.
Major reduction of maintenance. And that being said, I think it looks better, personally.
Can I move to approve?
Yeah.
You may.
I make a motion to approve the request of 185 Main LLC for a site plan modification regarding landscaping at property identified as 185 Main Street, East Lyme, Assessor's Map, 12.1, Lot 79.
Okay, I'll take a second.
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it looks
Moving on, thank you. Approval of minutes of April 21st, 2022. You can recall last meeting we did vote on these. However, it was not brought as an item to the agenda, so I asked that they be added to our agenda. So I would like to make that part, I would like to ask for approval of minutes of April 21st, 2022.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2022, and June 2nd, 2022.
Can we do one at a time, because everyone at April 21st is here, can vote. Not everybody was here for June 2nd, so I'd like to keep them separate if I may.
Sure.
Okay, can you modify your approval, please?
I move that we approve the minutes of April 21st, 2022.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? That carries. Thank you. Now, Ms. Markovitz, if you'd like to give a second.
I move to approve the minutes of June 2nd, 2022.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excuse me?
I second it. Is that what you said, a second?
Yes.
Yeah, I seconded it.
Debbie Jett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain?
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Excuse me, Ms. Jett, you weren't here either, I do not believe, correct?
I was here for the 21st one.
Not for the June 2nd.
Oh, I thought.
So that's
I'm
why,
sorry.
that's why I hesitated on you
Oh,
seconding the
I'm
motion.
sorry,
there.
Terry. I thought I heard you say 22nd, 21st. I'm sorry.
I'll second it,
No.
if you prefer.
No, she can still second it,
Okay.
she just has to abstain from the
I
vote.
did read them, but that's okay. I will
Yeah,
abstain.
thank you. Motion carries 501. Old business, we have none. New business, we have none. Moving on, any business on the floor, if any by the majority vote of the commission? Anyone? Moving on. Mr. Zoning Official.
As you know, we've been a little slow as a commission, or as you new members may not know. This spring, we've been rather slow, I think because of the economy and politics to some degree. Although I am seeing some life, I've met with an architect the other day, I've got another redo project on Main Street. You will be seeing this one, I think we're not quite sure what we're going to do, but that's coming down the pike. I had a first conversation this week, so we'll see what that develops. I can share with you that the car wash next to Stop and Shop is coming down, but I have a new car wash going in. It will be updated, so there will be a place to wash your cars. The price point will be much higher than we're used to. There'll be a tunnel, there'll be no wands, and they'll have cleaning stations for vacuum. We'll be getting
That
around
building's
to
actually
this.
coming down?
Pardon me?
That building's actually coming down?
Yeah, they'd like to. I'm not thrilled with the building they showed me, so we're getting ready to sit down about that. That building that is existing, if you look at it, we spent a lot of time designing that, and it's not a typical car wash structure. But based on their design, the building's probably gonna go. The building they're proposing is not my cup of tea, so I've already suggested we have a sit down It's also the same people that are doing the Exit 75 project. This gentleman has many businesses, and this is going to be a new opportunity. We need a car wash, so I'm thrilled personally. We'll see what the building ends up looking like. We don't have architecture review yet there, but I will also share, speaking of that, I have a type of draft for the north end of town. I need to go back through it again, polish it up, and then we'll get that to the commission. We're generally busy daily. This is our slow time of year because the projects that we approved are building, the folks that are going to be coming in haven't arrived yet. We're just starting to book up. So we'll see how busy we get to the county, in my view. I think the town's relatively in good shape. I do have a couple other projects coming in, one active adult, and people are talking to me about a bigger project, more inland, a little bit north of Route 1. So we'll report back when we know more.
Do we have anybody moving in the old police station yet?
No, that is a couple of individuals and groups have expressed interest. One individual wants to tear it down and make it a parking lot. Someone else wants to do a mixed-use building with a restaurant on top.
Cool.
But it all depends who can convince the seller to sell it to them. We can't get any more involved than we have been in the marketplace. I think we all would have a preference of what users we'd like to see, but as you know, we can't pick and choose them. So no, I know some people are interested. Actually, our 185 group is also interested. I just did a presentation. They've made calls, but no progress from what I understand. So activity continues.
I have a question, and I don't know if it's you that I direct it to, but the properties that the state has taken over, and I see that looks like they're going to come down.
I haven't talked out there with you
No,
yet.
I just wanted to. The thing I was concerned about is the garbage that's starting to show
Well,
up.
yeah,
in
that
the
was,
lots.
yeah, I was gonna get to that.
I have been talking to the project manager via email for 3 months. I have recently sent them a memo, and we're also fighting over Stop and Shop because the end of their improvements in that industrial park road, they're going from 0 and then increasing the road width proportionally, starting essentially at 1 foot, increasing, and they want to take my trees from the Stop and Shop. And I have argued till I'm
Not the trees.
and they don't want to hear it. And I've had a new project engineer, a young guy, take over from the older guy who was very expensive and was listening. I can report that they plan on starting demo around July 1, or to do some of the site. I've asked them repeatedly to mow the grass because it's becoming.
Well, there's a couch and a mattress in
He
there
has
now.
contacted the mowing division with no response. I'm close to asking some of our state reps to
Yeah, I
talk to
mean,
the higher ups and call the commissioner at DOT and say, hey, is this how you run your operation? You're creating blights in our community. Under the guise of doing a project, that's how you're gonna run this part of it. What are you gonna be doing later?
The thing, people are dumping garbage there now.
Yeah.
and not only
There's a
that,
couch and a
that
mattress
They're
in there.
aware of that.
let's back up to the piece right off the exit ramp to the left. That was a staging area for material, 2 years ago, and it hasn't been touched or mowed or maintained.
Yeah.
Never mind, we're still a year and a half out from this project. How are you going to maintain? Now you have, I mean,
And they're talking a 3-year project. The new crew, I'm not impressed with at DOT, with all due respect with our friends at DOT, but they're unresponsive. The previous crew was pretty good to work with. They were very responsive. They have a landscape architect come down as part of the bridge redo. I was able to negotiate the bridge abutments would be a dry stack stone look rather than the plain generic concrete abutments that you see all over the state. And I kind of probably embarrassed them. If you can do it Fairfield County, why can't you do it here? What's wrong with us? And so they kind of said, okay, we'll go with that dry stack stone look, which hopefully will be an improvement. But this group, I'm still hopeful that we'll establish a pretty good working relationship, but we shall see. Right now, they're unresponsive. use to get the other departments to come in and do what they need to do, so we may need to, ask for a little help and move up the food chain. But you're sharing the same concerns, we've all heard it, Kevin
Right.
Siri and I have talked about it, I've kept him abreast and talking on some of the emails. We're all seeing it, my wife is yelling at it.
So that's why you were in jail.
We're all there.
Yeah, it's
And
it's
we're all not
unfortunate.
wrong.
So-
The state Kennedy, you have to be a little more responsible.
I mean, that,
It's starting to look really
that
blighted
represents our
down
town.
in
I mean, people are
61.
getting off for coffee
My
and
view
the
is
second
this is
machine
how
in
the state
yesterday.
operates, this is what you're going to do, and what are you gonna be doing later? And, I'm not sure what the dynamics are within, but I intend to kind of move up the food chain.
But listen, with Elvis coming to town,
Well,
it's,
the real answer
Gotta
is
put
to
us on
send
the
the
map.
wire, but, you know, I think I'll, spare him for now.
Looks like they moved a second very large piece of equipment in yesterday.
Yeah,
Or the day before.
and, you know, anticipation is starting July 1, but what does that mean?
I don't know.
And we have no jurisdiction over them, other than to ask.
yeah, well,
us.
what are we going to be left with once the buildings are down for
Well,
2
that's my
years?
concern as well, and they're just gonna leave a hole in the ground, are they gonna clean it up? And when are they actually gonna start the bridge?
Hmm.
And moving earth, or is this just demo gonna sit there for a year?
Right.
I'm informed we're starting in July 1, and I'm anticipating it will go in a timely fashion. Don't know, state seems.
so you're on top of it basically. You've made inquiries and
I'm
you're looking
chasing
for
it.
some help if need be, right?
I'm chasing it,
Yeah.
we're on it,
There's only so much we can do.
That's correct.
you know, we're all but ready to go out and mow it ourselves.
I want to take that couch to the dump.
Well, there's still people, I've seen people in the back of that too, that,
I think we have some homeless people that have arrived. in
I think they're
town
living in there.
And are looking for places to land.
It's mostly boarded up. And they've taken out,
Mostly boarded up.
the utilities are all plugged.
Yeah, we had some of them, some homeless living around the brook the previous years down the back. I'll also share with you the fire job at Midway Mall. They've got a green light, they're ready to, they're starting to make progress moving forward.
Rebuild. Thank you, Mr. Mulholland. Ms. Hardy?
Don't really have anything this evening.
No?
Board of Selectmen did not meet last night due to graduation, which was very nice. Almost graduated.
Nice night for it.
Very nice, and great to see over 200 students graduate.
One of them was my grandson.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
And I will say quickly to follow up to Mr. Mulholland's comments on the Dominion building, we were working to see if the 2 bathrooms in the front of the building, in the front section of the building, could be open for public access. Because a lot of the local businesses are complaining, people come in to use the bathrooms and buy a soda. And it's creating problems. We're working hard to attract people to come to town, and we don't have facilities. That's quite a hike if you're downtown to do a few errands, and then you need to use the facilities. You've got to go either up to Hole in the Wall or down to Sheep Park. So we're beginning to see some specific litter accumulating, which shouldn't be. So we've talked with Dominion and thinking of a way to just block off the front part of that building. They're interested in trying to cooperate, but still some things to work out as to how those would be monitored. So that's just a little follow-up. Other than that, suggested plans for use of the building come our way, although as Mr. Mulholland stated, it's really for our purview, not necessarily for our final say. The building is in very, very tough shape, and no exaggeration that we're very lucky that for the employees that had to work there, that we were not sued for very poor working conditions, dangerous working conditions. So the idea of the town taking this over in any portion building for people to work in. There's mold inside the walls, not just outside, contaminated air handlers, etc. So when people say to you, gee, you know, we really wish that the town would take it over, it costs millions, plus the environmental cleanup. So hopefully we'll get something in there that might mimic that sort of grandiose structure on a small scale, and not something that looks like a cardboard box, 3 stories high.
If I may, I'll also add that the cost of the remediation on that job would take a town like ours a couple of years to accomplish. A private developer would go in and be out of there in 3 months in the building. So in my opinion, I'd rather see it go to a private developer. We still have architecture review downtown. Parking lots are allowed standalone, but only by special permit. So if someone wanted to do that, it would be up to this commission.
And that would be a shame.
And it would be a shame, but I have been approached by Marsden and Holder in downtown that told me that was his desire. Other groups want to do 2, 3-story and do. I've seen one beautiful design that's already been drafted, which would prove to be an asset in that location. And we have some parking lots there. So we'll see where that goes. But I'm hoping that Dominion, and I don't have any contact with them, but I hope they'll be discreet when they do decide to sell, and won't go to a highest bid kind of a situation where they'll look to see that they can be helpful to the town and try to provide for an asset to the community rather than something that would not be. That might be wishful thinking, but see what happens.
Well, I think it's very optimistic. We have a lot of employees for that company that live in this town. So,
Quite a bit. Yep.
and I think they are very open to public input as to what comes forward before they decide. So we just need to be watchful. And really, that's pretty much it.
You're excited about Elvis, right?
Should I say something about that?
If you like to, you like Elvis?
Well, no, I think the whole idea is to sort of boost up downtown. Here's a great opportunity. I can't believe little old Dynamic Cinema, that first day release of the new Elvis movie, which has excellent reviews. We're really working with the local merchants, especially downtown Dynamic, to get some special things. Terry, I don't know how your dancing shoes are, but Arthur Murray is going to be performing. Arthur Murray Studios. We've got, we wanted, one of Elvis's favorite sandwiches was peanut butter and
Bananas.
grilled.
Yes.
Well, we didn't seem to get a lot of enthusiasm
Uh-huh.
from the restaurants for having specials on that. But the waffle truck's coming. And so
They'll have peanut butter and bananas.
peanut butter and banana waffles.
Yep.
But really, it's about downtown Natick and trying to really get some interest for people to see our local shops, what we have available, and not just come, walk on the boardwalk, and leave to go someplace else. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting. Advance tickets are available, 8 o'clock show. We have one of the top 20 Elvis, I'm told it's not an impersonator, an Elvis memory something or other, but one of the top 20 ones in the nation coming. And I understand that Elvis has been able to make amends with Priscilla, and she will be coming as well.
What is the date of this extravaganza?
Next
June
Friday, the
24th.
She used to live in the,
Priscilla?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in the house where the granite guy lives, that does
Check
granite.
on the blue suede shoes.
Did you know that?
What?
Priscilla Presley used to live in town?
Yes, I did know that.
Oh, I did not know
Would
that.
you like to know where?
Yes.
She said, yeah, where the granite guy lives.
Over on York,
On York, yes.
yeah.
We were thinking of getting a historic marker there for that.
She was here a few years ago, driving around looking for the house,
Yes,
yeah.
and she was walking around, and I was minutes behind her after somebody called me and said, "Get downtown." I got in my car and raced down here. I said, where is she? We just saw her going into the little dress shop that used to be down there, Ardon. So I raced in there and they said, yes, she was here, she and a friend, and they bought 2 blouses. I said, what do they look like? She said, we don't have your size. There you go. So, but really, that's what we want. You're all smiling now. Mr. Schmidt?
I'm smiling.
That is a smile. That's a smile.
But that's everyone, something to look forward to. If things start at 5 o'clock.
What date?
24th.
24th. Starts, yeah, all the activities start at 5.
Calendar.
Elvis will be
We're
doing
hosting our condo barbecue at our house that afternoon and
7:30
evening.
to 5
So
days of 8.
but I'll put Elvis on others.
The best thing is, the print tickets are $10 a piece.
Expensive to be slimy.
If you're a big Elvis fan, I think it's something to do.
I have
Thank
a
you,
minor quick question. Is there any way we could get devs to just even throw in a few flowers in that big empty space that's all old mulch?
Yeah, we're kind of working on that.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Apparently I don't have as much charm as I thought I did.
No, but that's all.
Turns out as you get older.
That's all supposed to be addressed anyway, correct?
I remember that.
So, Ann, if you remember,
Well, I
this is
do
dedicated-
remember.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm on your side as well.
We'll
Trust
be
me.
having fun next
It's
spring
just turning into an
I-
eyesore.
at renewal time.
I'm not a big fan of T111, just for the record.
We'll be having fun at the
No.
renewal time next
That's
Yeah.
not very becoming.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on, comments from the zoning board liaison to planning commission. I will start with Ms. Markovitz. Did they have a May 10th meeting?
No, they did not.
They did not. Thank you. June 14th, Ms. Jet Harris.
Yes, they did. So I attended the meeting, and there was one of the topics they were speaking about was affordable housing. And they were looking, there was 2 applicants that wanted to be involved in that process, and they picked one, and it's Foreman in York was selected for that contract. And it was supposed to start on June 20th, but due to COVID, things got kind of put back a little bit, but they still are moving forward with it. They've asked for an extension to finish that process. Also, too, Attorney Paul Garrity was there for the applicant C. Clark. So they had a very lengthy discussion about that, and he wanted to continue that application. So there was some discussion about the 65 days and stuff like that, so they got that squared away. And that was pretty much about it. Mr. Gaishel talked about they were going to be seeking out volunteers to help with the charter revisions whenever that comes time for that, but they didn't have a specific date for that yet. So that was about it.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Peck, followed by Mr. Schmidt in August.
August 9th.
August 9th, that's correct. When I comment, Chairman, myself, I do not have too much to say other than having an enjoyable summer. Make yourself down at the Elvis show. Make Miss Purdy happy.
Are there beef fat fries there?
She asked me the same thing. Unfortunately, my BFFs are not going to be there. I do apologize. But come see me in July. I'll be somewhere. On that, I wish everybody a safe week. And then what's that? See you in July. And congrats to all your children and grandkids who have graduated this season. Take care. With that, I will take a motion
None of
to
mine
adjourn.
graduated.
Do I have
So
a-
moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Done.
Mr. Mulholland, I would like to thank you for this and you and your staff. Thank you.